almost home. But I've been debating for a while. Actually, we both have been debating a while on what to share with you guys and how much to share with you guys or whatever. But so I have special company that keeps coming to visit, and I know we've kind of left it somewhat of a mystery, and there's a reason for that. Most of you guys know, not all of you, but I was engaged for quite a few years, 2 years, 3 years, something like that, to a person who was my best friend, really. And long story short, the bottom line is that right before, literally like 3 months before we were supposed to get married, a letter came in the mail to him saying, we're assuming you're no longer pursuing your divorce because he'd moved, whatever. There's a whole bunch of different reasons, and basically the attorney that he'd had dropped the ball. So he started looking for another attorney, got another attorney, and then kind of our relationship started to go south. And so in the meantime, his ex was kind of like blackmailing him with the kids, and I'll take them away, you'll never see them, blah, 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 whatever. So eventually, it was just one of those things, like there was always just some excuse about something. So I finally confronted her and was like, what's going on? And she was like, oh, we're not getting a divorce. There were never any papers filed. That's, full of it. We're still happily married. And as you can imagine, at that point, I was just beyond myself and was like, we're done. That's it. Called my parents, who were just disappointed beyond belief. My dad sent out an email just to let everybody know, because it was like, we were getting married. Like, it was one of those, like, oh my gosh, what the heck? So the bottom line of the story, and the biggest issue here is what he did was not out of spite. It wasn't out of, I'm going to have my cake and eat it too. It was a matter of just always trying to do what's best for everybody, and in the meantime, doing what is worst for everyone. So, and on top of that, quite honestly, just like, there were some major spiritual issues as well, and just, he just always was trying to please everyone, which comes back from a long line of trying to do that, and at the same time feeling like he was to blame for everything, which, okay, let's be honest, he was. So, that was it. So anyway, we broke up, and he was devastated, like, lost probably about 30 pounds, devastated, went into, like, severe depression, whatever, and I was like, sorry about your luck, that's the way it goes. I really had no sympathy for a very, 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 very long time. But at the same time, he was like, look, you and Josh will always be my family. I will always take care of you. What can I do? Because we had to move out of the house, because the house that we lived in, that we were renting, was supposed to be for all of us. It was a huge house, haunted, but another story. It was a huge house, and I'm like, the bills were ridiculous, and there was no reason for Josh and I just to be staying there. So I was like, we need to move. We need to find another place to live. So we moved, and at the same time, I wound up not teaching anymore at the school that I was at, just because they were making some changes that I didn't agree with in the curriculum. And first and foremost, I'm an educator, and when you have a curriculum that is erroneous, I refuse to teach it. And for a long time, she kind of gave me autonomy to do that, and then she was like, oh no, this is what we're doing. So anyway, long story short, that brought me to decide, you know what, I need to go back to school and finish my degree so I can teach wherever I want. So that's what I did. And in the meantime, it was like, what are we supposed to do? Because I can't afford to pay for the bills by myself, plus Josh was, at that time, was going to a private school and whatever, and then wound up going to even more expensive private school. But, so anyway, he was like, more than anything else, you guys are my family, and I love you, and I always will, so I will do everything in my power to be able to take care of you. And for years, he kept to that. I mean, he was not in our lives. He was kind of just behind the scenes, and just, whenever I needed something, like financially or moving or whatever, he was always there to be able to help out in any way. I did catering jobs. He helped with that, just kind of wanting nothing in return, really, and just Now, knowing that, you know, in the back of his mind, which I kind of figured, I'm like, in the back of his mind, he just hopes we're going to be together, and I'm like, that's never, ever, 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 ever going to happen. Like, there's just no way, because I don't trust you, period, you know? And kind of stayed with that, and eventually, I told him, right before we moved, about May, I think, which is when we really had made the decision, okay, this is what we're doing, we're moving to Florida, made the decision to come down here, and I told him, and I was like, well, this is it. He's never going to help us now. And I'm like, so I had to kind of like be financially stable, whatever. And amazingly, he not only helped, but was more helpful than ever before. And it was like when I finally leveled and was like, we will never be more than friends. Like, it's just never going to happen, which kind of came before me telling him we were moving to Florida, because that's just the way it kind of worked out. It just happened on a conversation, and you know, he was devastated, but at the same time it was much more freeing, because I just was like, yeah, this is like, you need to understand, no matter what, like, if you want to remain friends, whatever, that's fine, but you need to understand there is no possible chance on the face of God's earth that we will ever be more than friends. And he was okay with that. And then in the midst of the move, he wound up, we needed help moving, and I had asked Josh to get some of his friends to come help, and he didn't. So I was like, well, then, you know, I'm going to call David and ask him if he'll come help move. And he did. And when Josh saw him, it was like, and you have to understand, Josh, like, hated him for a long time. And Josh gave him like a big hug, and it was like this, like, I teared up. I was like, holy cow, that was amazing. And then this was maybe, 15 days, obviously, because it was 15 days before we moved out of our house, before we moved down here. And during that time, Josh and David got to spend a lot of time together, and it was very healing. It was healing for me, it was healing for him, but in the meantime, I was still like, whatever, I'm out of here, I'm moving to Florida, see ya. And that's kind of just where it stood. And so it was I don't know, it was just very healing, but at the same time, it didn't change the way I felt. And so we left, and as we left, the day that we left, he was, we had the moving truck and everything actually stayed at his house, and the friends that came up to help us move down, they stayed with them, and it was just a real healing time. So anyway, when we left, we're pulling out, and Josh, we're driving away, and the further we were driving away, the worse I started feeling about this, and I was like, wait a minute, what have I done? Like, this is, more than anything else, he was my best friend, and just always had been. So we started driving away, and got pretty far down, or we were eating lunch a couple hours later, and Josh goes, because I left him like food that was in my refrigerator and stuff, and Josh goes, oh, I just had a horrible thought. And we were like, what? And he was like, I was just picturing David like sitting there by himself, like crying, eating the food that you left. And I was like, Josh, why would you say that? That was horrible. So that kind of just stuck with me, and it was very difficult. So while I was excited to move down, it was much more difficult than I thought it was going to be to leave him. And that's just kind of where we left it. He was like, he goes, my biggest thing is anything that you've needed, I've been able to be there to help you. I'm just worried about you guys being that far away. I was like, whatever, my family's here, it's all good. So he's like, well, anything you need, I'll be there. So turns out my dad called me a couple months ago, and he was like, I went to call my dad, and my brother answered the phone, and he's like, yeah, somebody just came to the door, and I heard your dad go, oh my gosh, hi, and he goes, and that's all I know. Well, it turns out that David flew down to Fort Lauderdale to go and talk to my dad, to apologize to him, and my dad's like, you guys are adults, Josh is an adult at this point, you can do it. So where was I? Anyway, so he just told my dad, or my dad just told him, I was just disappointed. And so there were people who were like, if I ever see this guy again, I'm going to kill him. And, oh yeah, huge point. The whole reason that we broke up to begin with, in general was because of what his ex had told me, that there was no, if divorce papers had never been filed, blah, blah, blah. A year later, he actually showed me the papers, like the legal documents, and he was like, of separation, which was basically everything except the final divorce. It was whatever the legal term is. But I was like, why didn't you ever tell me this? And he goes, because you told me it didn't matter. And I was like, oh yeah, that's true, it didn't matter. Oh yeah, one tiny detail I left out, I forgot to mention, which is kind of important. He's been divorced for years, by the way, and I do have the paperwork, so I know that for a fact. But yeah, that's kind of important. Part of it all being part of the plan. This was part of the plan. It truly was. And also, other point, he didn't just randomly show up at my dad's house. Josh had actually invited him to come down during Halloween Horror Nights. And he was like, oh, we were both kind of like, well, that was pretty cool. So he was like, but you have to come down twice. You have to come down at the beginning and at the end. So it was really neat. So it was the beginning of Halloween Horror Nights. And anyway, so the point of all of this is that is who my special guest is. And the reason that he went down there was because he went to go ask my dad if it would be all right if, even though we're like a bajillion miles away, he would like to try to pursue a relationship at this point. So there's nothing set in stone. There's no whatever. I haven't changed my relationships. I've never changed my relationship status on my Facebook page regardless. But you will definitely start seeing him more in the vlogs and videos and stuff like that. But one, because it's just more fun when you have people in the vlogs, and I don't like having to be there and be like, oh, yeah, my special guest, whatever. Plus, he's funny. And so, yeah, so that's just where it is. And I'm really grateful. I really, for people who just think that's it, hurts, wounds, whatever, like, that I will never forgive. There is so much forgiveness and so much healing that's taken place. Gosh, seriously, I'm getting teary-eyed. Okay, the emotion in the last vlogs have been ridiculous, let me just say, but it's really an amazing thing. So we're just, there's nothing set in stone, there's no whatever. It's just kind of like wait and see what happens and watch as the plan unfolds. So that's why I'm adding this part of the vlog into the plan continues to unfold, because this is the rest of part of the other plan. So yeah, things are going really well and whatever. So we'll just wait and see what happens. So that's it. But do remember, it is all part of the plan.